Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Mr. Martin's Education Lab. I'm your host, Mr. Martin. This week we were going to talk about a 5-day versus 4-day school week, but from my last podcast I did until now, I had someone come forward and they said they wanted to talk a little bit about the administrative side to our work experience podcast that we talked about last week. So today I'm joined with a special guest, Derek Niss. He is the principal for Pawnee City Public Schools. And I want to say thank you very much for joining me today on this podcast. I very much appreciate it.
Thanks for inviting me.
Absolutely. So last week we talked a bit about different apprenticeship programs and work experience, and we had a couple of guests of students come on and kind of talk about their concerns. I know it's vastly different looking at it from student point of view and then also from an administrative side too. And so some of them they kind of mentioned about some of the rules and such for it. They mentioned, and like I kind of mentioned as well, that these rules, like, they would have to be something in place. So like making sure academics are well, making sure that there's a log form for them to check in, check out. And so I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about that administrative side for it.
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, when we're talking about like work release or work-based learning or apprenticeship opportunities, it is generally recognized, within our school that those are very valuable experiences for kids. And I can say that in a small school, it can be challenging to create those opportunities. And it's not due to lack of support or lack of community partners or lack of willing businesses. We're very fortunate in our community to have a lot of support and a lot of willing partners. The challenge, one of them, has been scheduling. And so, the state obviously has specific graduation requirements set by each school. Mm-hmm. And so all students have to meet these graduation requirements. Most of them are listed under Rule 10. There have been some newer ones in the last couple of years, the Personal Finance, Computer Science Act. Those are state statute that requires those. But those requirements, there's not a workaround. There's no loophole. Like, those have to happen. And in a small school where you have each one of your teachers teaching 5, 6, 7, sometimes 8 different classes, mm-hmm. The schedule's pretty complex, as opposed to in a big school where you might have, say, 4 6th grade science teachers, and that's all they teach. And you have flexibility in your schedule to move kids from one section to the other. And so what we found is that we know we want to continue the offerings that we do have. We want to continue the work-based learning, the apprenticeships, the teacher's aides, all of those programs. We want to continue those, but we want to enhance them significantly because we recognize that there are a lot of students that can really benefit from that. Now, that looks different for every kid. Mm-hmm. And so that is one difference from looking at it from the student point of view. A lot of students have some very thoughtful outlooks on how these situations could be approached differently, potentially better. But as school administration, we have to consider every child, and we can't make decisions for one child that might in some way negatively impact another. And so we have to be really thoughtful about how we approach every change. So I guess really I'm thinking about your specific question. So a little mm-hmm. bit from the administrative side. From the administrative side, I'd say we recognize that those are valuable experiences. We would like to continue what we have and enhance it by offering more. And we would like to do that specifically with opportunities within the career and technical ed side of things. So we would like to see more offerings for those students who are either not college bound or heading for a 2-year program, because we already have a lot of significant offerings in place for those headed to 4-year schools. And so we want to continue to enhance those real world learning opportunities for those kids that maybe aren't.
Absolutely. And so I know, like, with trying to enhance those opportunities, some of those kids that they don't want to go to college, they just want to go straight workforce and such. And I think it would be a great opportunity for, like, if we were to get something like this for juniors and seniors, having those upperclassmen, something the lowerclassmen can look forward to. And that helps them, like, some of the other students they mentioned last week was, like, on the job training or, like, work experience, being able to get more chances at the bat to be able to get that seniority in those areas, to be able to get more of, like, that, like, footing underneath them to be able to keep moving forward and be able to push forward and keep on moving. And so, and I think that could also help with those that are, let's say they have just about all their credits needed for to graduate, and they only have like 4 classes. Then they're trying to find other classes to, like, filler classes that they're taking, but they don't need it to graduate. So it becomes almost like they're taking it, but there's not a lot of, I would say, like, a lot of want to take the class. So, like, they could be distracting to others, or have an adverse attitude towards the class, and it could be a hindrance to those that want to take it, that want to be able to kind of push forward and go through.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. I have a couple of thoughts, actually. That's obviously something that we consider a lot. Mrs. Blecka and I, when making the schedule and talking about graduation requirements, that's something that Mr. Rottinghouse and I consider when we're making curricular decisions. So I guess bluntly, yes, that happens. We have our program of study, if you start at the freshman level, often prepares students so that by the time they are seniors, there are maybe 4 classes that they actually have to take. Now, that's not every kid, right? Remember, in this discussion, anything we say is an absolute. It doesn't apply to every student. And so we have to have a plan for every student. So, but I can say that it does happen where there are students who have met the graduation requirements and are really only needing those 4 classes. Having said that, though, I'm thinking of those specific faces this year. And those specific faces that I'm thinking of this year did have to enroll in more classes than those 4, because we still have to fill their schedule.
Yes.
And so, but some of those faces that I'm picturing now are also faces that are taking a blacksmithing class and learning a skill that they would not have had the opportunity to had they been allowed to show up for 3 or 4 classes in the morning and then beat it for the rest of the day to go work. But like I said, nothing's absolute. So I do think that having those students here, we're still able to provide meaningful educational experiences for them. Them at times being not engaged in those because they don't see the value in them, I think even that is a critical life skill. Like, there are going to be situations in their life where they are not going to see the value in something, but they are going to have to do it. Yes. And see those skills that are outside of our core curriculum that are just as important for us to be teaching students: resilience, grit, determination, accountability, responsibility. That's another situation where they can show their colors. They can show that they have what it takes to push through, even if they don't see the value in it. Now, we also respect kids' time. And so that's where, when I mentioned possibly elaborating on CTE programs of study and enhancing work-based learning, I think those are some opportunities there where we could be more respectful of kids' time by the time they're seniors. Essentially, freshman curriculum is almost prescribed. They have 2 or 3 options to pick from in their day, maybe. We'd like to enhance that a little bit more, giving them more introductory options to explore things in business fields or ag, shop, computer science, health. We'd like to give those introductory options as freshmen. then they can continue once they see which path they like outside of the core curriculum that the state requires us to do. We'd like to see them able to then go on to some intermediate courses as later freshmen or sophomores, and then potentially completing a capstone course in whatever program of study by the end of their sophomore year and or junior year, and then being able to see some opportunities for work-based learning
Absolutely.
in their juniors or senior year. And specifically with seniors, I think that can look like more of a shortened school day here. Now, having said that, that's what we would like to see.
Yes.
That's a general consensus, a positive thing.
Yes.
Now, making that happen and making it workable for every kid is another thing.
Yes,
Yeah.
very different.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And with that, like having those introductory classes, you can also start targeting student interest too. And that can help with like kind of almost like streamlining to help them to go into the fields that they want to.
Yeah.
Granted, you're going to have ones that I want to be a farmer, or I want to be an NFL broadcaster, or I want to go and do this, that are very specific and such.
Let me talk off of those couple examples you gave really quick. So first of all, we do want to sort of allow students to hone their interest.
Yes.
And we hope that gives more buy-in too, so that when they are, later on in school, when they are upperclassmen, and we're seeing some of the students currently with not being engaged in some of the classes they find unnecessary in their view. We would like to think that if we're giving students more of a say, that they have more buy-in as well.
Yes.
But you gave two examples, like farmer, for example. So we already have multiple. We have three complete programs of study in the ag area, in the ag cluster, and that can culminate with work-based learning, and currently does, and most of it's done outside of the school day because of our current scheduling system. Now, that doesn't mean that has to be that way in the future. I mean, we could see a senior who's completed ag pathways of study, is completing their other required courses, and then potentially having the ability to use some of their school day for work-based learning on the farm.
Absolutely.
That's exactly what we want to see for the kids. Many schools still have to schedule very traditionally, but right now, especially with the support, Nebraska is phenomenal in the way that they support their schools. That's why we consistently rank in the top few states in the country in student outcomes. So right now there's a lot of support from Department of Ed, from the ESUs, to give us the opportunities to learn more about these programs of study and how we can enhance them at our school, thinking more modern and less traditional scheduling. And so we've done a lot of work this year in that light, and I hope to just continue to see that move forward.
Absolutely. If this was something that we were to bring forward to the school for like high school students, like the upperclassmen, what potential rules could we, if we already got confirmed that we're going to be doing this, what would be some potential rules that we would have to have for those students? Some of the ones that I discussed in the last video was that they need to be in good academic standing. So making sure they're getting assignments in on time, they're doing well in their courses. If they're not doing well, they're making that effort to go to the teachers, being able to talk, get help where they need it, or get assistance throughout, showing that they have that strive for academic excellence and going through with that, making sure they have those core classes that they're doing well with, that they have their core classes that are all done. And being able to have those done and have them have an opportunity to be able to go and do like the work experience and such.
Well, when you talk about rules or potential rules, you immediately think of accountability, right?
Yes.
So you think what needs to be in place to make sure that there's the correct balance for all that we are required or desiring to provide for the students.
Yes.
And so I think first and foremost, you have to have a structure in place so that there's accountability within that work-based learning system. So that would be, open communication with employer, whether it's logs or, digital or paper logs, doesn't matter. communication with a point of contact at the school. Typically, that's the guidance counselor. Obviously, administration would want to be able to observe at the work sites to make sure that things are, in fact, set up appropriately. And so there's on that side, there's a substantial amount. Then you also think about accountability for the student as a whole, meeting their other obligations at school. Because if we're thinking about this honestly, and we think back to maybe when we were in high school, if you told me you can do these 2 or 3 classes, and then you can potentially qualify for work-based learning if you've done the appropriate courses here to qualify for it, then you can go work on the farm. Well, work-based learning isn't just go work.
No.
It's intentionally designed so that you can learn skills on the job that can prepare you to go on to that next step. It's not go just drive this tractor for your dad. And so there has to be accountability within the system, and there has to be accountability for the students to meet their other obligations at school. Obviously, we can't qualify students for work-based learning that haven't completed a program of study.
Yes.
That would not make sense, logically, with how we need to do that within school. Also, we couldn't let students do work-based learning that aren't on track for graduation. So if students have failed classes needing credit recovery, that work-based learning would be off the table until they can demonstrate that they can manage their responsibilities here at school before adding more. Yes. And that I think is just a logical approach to it, because obviously we want to set up every student for success, and if we're piling on more when they've demonstrated that they can't quite produce at the level required with what they already have, then we're essentially setting them up to fail by piling more on there. So, and then I think also you would have to be mindful during that current semester where they're doing the work-based learning, you'd have to be mindful of their grades in their classes, behavior in classes. Everything would need to demonstrate that they are a capable and competent student that is going to be on task when they're at school in their learning environment and handling their responsibilities here appropriately. And that's why we can trust them to go participate in work-based learning. If not, then we should be having them here practicing those skills before they are able to get out and sort of work on their own or with a partner. So there are a lot of X's and O's that need to be in place that I think probably go unseen or unnoticed by a lot of people. That's not, when you're thinking about your goals, you're not always thinking about the rules you need to have in place unless you're the person in charge of administering those rules. And so I would say that'd be another difference that I would be interested in talking to the students about, because there would be things that would need to be in place that they are definitely intelligent enough to think through, but I'm wondering if they have the perspective to have already done that, if they've already considered all of those things.
Yes.
So.
Yes. Well, thank you very much for taking time out of your day to join me on this podcast. And I really do like having that thought of trying to introduce like students as well as administrators as well into this and be able to talk back and forth and be able to have like a really good sit down, deep conversation going, like being able to get all sides with it.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. I very much appreciate it. For the podcast listeners, I hope this is a great opportunity to like get more of an administrative side of things and be able to get more insight into on the admin side. As always, should this be a program we should look into for high schools and to help students like to get that work experience, or do you think that there should be some other form for it? Please leave a comment. Thank you very much for joining us today. I hope you all have a great day. Thank you. We can't wait for you to come back to listen in.